All right, we start with the Standard in Kenya, and the first story on the Standard newspaper is workers go home empty-handed amid protest talk. I mean, there's been protests for a while now, if you've been following the story, and there was a discussion, but unfortunately it says here that the workers went home empty-handed. Employees expected the government to focus on the high cost of living and probably get a pay raise, but speaker after speaker took their time to rail at the opposition over planned demonstration today. And you can find that on page 4, page 5, and page 6. Now, above the newspaper at the top there, you see Murate, cost of living likely to sink. According to Ruto's, cost of living likely to sink Ruto's government, I beg your pardon. And that is found on page 32 of the Standard. On page 32 still, you see chaos at Sudan port as locals flee. That's referring to the crisis in Sudan that has gone for the long time now. On page 45, it says, will Arsenal sing the blues at Emirates? That's a sports story you find on page 45. Then by the left of the newspaper, you see inside Mackenzie's doomsday teachings. Mackenzie is the pastor in Kenya, who told his followers to starve to see Jesus. That story is still being unfolded, and we're getting to discover new facts about the really, really horrendous happening at that farmland. Then it also says how Gitunguri is guarding his billions in death. Obviously, Gitunguri is dead, but I mean, there's an article here on page 4 that talks about how he is supposedly guarding his billions in death. And I think that's all we have on the Standard newspaper for this morning.
All right. And of course, it seems like the majority of the conversations across the continent on Workers' Day were, mostly about, pay rise, or pay increment, across the continent. And of course, better working and living conditions for workers. But that's on the Standard. We can also, of course, look at more stories in Kenya this morning on the Daily Nation. It says here, Ruto's new salary plan for workers. We can also find real more details on that and see what President William Ruto is thinking about. Still in the eastern part of the continent, of course, the picture there, President William Ruto announced a new salary policy that will set equal pay for workers in public and private sector, even as he defended extra pension and medical deductions that have shrunk workers' pay slips. That's on pages 4, 5, and 6. Cult strangled members. It says here, deadly beliefs. Some of the victims of the cult operating in the Kilifi Shakahola village were killed by suffocation and strangulation. Post-mortem examination conducted yesterday on some of the 110 bodies exhumed has revealed. That's on page 12. I knew it. I always knew in the build-up to the story, when it was still about 30 bodies that had been found, 70 bodies. And then, seeing that a lot of them had been buried, I knew that there was almost no way that these people were just found dead and buried. Someone very likely also took part in murdering some of all these people.
Yeah. And then the sad thing is, they said some people who refused to participate in the fasting were also killed.
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't disobey your daddy Gio. Well, I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this ends or where this leads. Also on the Daily Nation this morning, protests, rivals dig in amid calls for restraint. President Ruto and Azimio Chief Raila Odinga have maintained hardline positions over today's planned opposition protest, even as calls for restraint dominated Labor Day celebrations. These are the stories that we can take on the Daily Nation newspapers. And of course, we'll move away from Kenya and see what we can find in Nigeria this morning on The Punch.
All right, on The Punch, you see one of the top stories there says, Tinubu promises top decisions. NLC demands new retirement age on page 62. Now, the Labour recommends 65 years retirement age, a 40-year length of service. And it also says President-elect seeks understanding, says hard decisions coming soon. Well, we'll see how that pans out. Then on page 41, the National Association of Resident Doctors fumes as Ngige condemns doctors' entitlement mentality. I don't even know what that is. I mean, you're asking these doctors not to go out, not to relocate, and then there should be a promise at least that you take care of them. And these people are saying that they're not getting enough. They're not getting the value for their worth, and now you're condemning their entitlement mentality. What is it? Should they go or should they stay? Now, on page 41, the police, DSS, INEC joint panel invite suspended Adamawa rec. On page 20, we see subsidy salary payment unlikely after June, says Obaseki. Beneath on page 8, Sudan, Egypt opens border for stranded Nigerians. We've been talking about Nigerians trying to evacuate Sudan for about 2 days now, and there's an update to that story. Egypt has opened their border for stranded Nigerians. And on page 4 and 5, lawless naval ratings brutalize Ogun man over parking space. Then page 8, Senate presidency, Akpabio meets Buhari and defends ambition. You find that story on page 8. And one of the biggest stories, the forefront of the newspaper, you see cars moving in something that looks like a flooded area. It says motorists stranded as flood takes over Lagos-Ibadan Express Long Bridge. And that is found on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. Those are the stories we can take on the Punch newspaper.
Right. And now let's move away from the Punch and see what's on the Nation newspapers this morning. And share with you. It says there, pay rise coming for health workers, lecturers, and others. And that's, should be great news for workers in Nigeria. Still on the Nation this morning, Ngige counters Obaseki over no cash to pay salary claim. 1,350 more Nigerians leave Khartoum. 27 buses head for Port Sudan. And also, Nigeria's forex reserves lose $1.82 billion. Inflows decline. And also, government officials suspended over alleged salary padding. That's on page 5. One or two other stories this morning. Strike notice by resident doctors absurd, says minister. And also, jam to release UTME results today. It is... I remember, these moments back then when jam results.
The tension. Everybody in your family is literally waiting.
Good luck to all who took the exams. All right, these are the stories that we can share on the Nation newspapers this morning. Not very many left. Of course, congratulations, or not congratulations, good news. Ex-NBA President Wale has been freed. If you remember, a few weeks ago, he was kidnapped somewhere in the southern part of the country. He has been set free, and that's on the Nation this morning. These are the stories that we can share for this part of Breakfast Central. We have more newspapers coming your way in the second half of Breakfast Central. But for now, stay with us.